All right. Next up, we have a talk about IP in the generation of decentralized AI. Here comes SY from Story Protocol. Nice.
Hello, this is SY. Thank you for making time in your precious Sunday. And I'm SY. I'm CEO and co-founder of Story. And we're building the programmable intellectual property layer in the age of generative AI. And our central argument is that the 500, 600-year-old copyright law has to be radically updated to actually serve the needs of kind of the content creation and attribution in the age of generative AI. And I'm sure many of you own dogs and how hard it is for you as a dog owner to have your dogs look at your camera when you're taking a photo. And now, with just one line of single prompt, you can get this incredible magical output, right? And what is actually happening behind this incredible pace of growth in generative AI? And I just want to take a macro historical look at this. And what is happening is actually generative AI unbundled substantiation in the process of creation. So if you think about what writing has done, it unbundled consumption. If you think about what actually printing press has done, it unbundled basic duplication. And now with internet, with social media, with the single computer, you can actually distribute your content at zero distribution cost to the entire world. Now what generative AI has done, if you have just a concept, you can substantiate that into a full creative output, right? And we think this whole substantiation process substantiation that actually generative AI has unbundled is going to get more and more high fidelity. So you've seen this incredible Moore's law happening in actually compute and also data. And this is not going to slow down. It's just going to continue to accelerate, right? But we think actually the gating problem in this AI is not speed or performance, right? We think actually to actually allow the sustainable growth of AI and this incredible creative revolution, we need to really figure out the right intellectual property layer. And we think the biggest gating problem is this current intellectual property layer, which I call centralized copyright law. And how I define this term IP layer is the IP layer is a technology-dependent ownership structure that not only protects but also incentivizes creators in the right way when you have a technological disruption, right? And I don't want to give you this boring historical lesson, but every breakthrough in content technology requires a new way to incentivize creativity, right? And we need a new IP layer for each disruption. And I don't want to give you this boring historical lesson, but when you had printing press, you had this incredible lower cost of duplication in terms of content, but there was no way to allocate ownership among these copied works, right? Is it going to be the printing press owner? Is it going to be the publisher? Is it going to be the investor into content? Is it going to be the author, right? Only when you had this copyright law as an IP layer, you've had things like Shakespeare, you've had things like Charles Dickens. And what we think is that actually copyright law, which is really optimized for printing, the age of printing era, printing press, the traditional media, very top-down studio structure distributing content, is not optimized for the age of social media and generative AI. It just can't keep up with the pace and speed, with the speed and scale and network nature of the internet. And what do I mean by this? If you think about what centralized copyright law is about, it is actually, I would say the biggest problem is that there's so much friction. Right? If you want to have the right kind of IP interactions, and if you want to actually build on top of someone else's content, I'm sure you've seen Harry Potter Balenciaga. I'm sure you've seen Drake's Deepfake song on Spotify. Actually, it's getting insane amount of views, insane amount of listens, but J.K. Rowling is not winning. Drake is not winning, and also the fan creator is not winning. And actually, the reason why this kind of illegal remixing is happening and no one's winning from this is that to actually build on top of someone else's content, you have to go through so many middlemen. It's the, it's the agents, CAs of the world, it's the law firms of the world, it's the terms of service of the big tech platforms, right? And why is this a massive problem, right? And we think the first market failure in this incredible friction that exists when you actually want to build on top of someone else's IP is that with this incredible amount of abundance happening in content, we're going to face massive amount of IP congestion. It's a little bit conceptual what I'm talking about, so I want to kind of dig down a little bit more. So what's happening with content, I would say, with this social media and generative AI is there's so much abundance of content, right? 3.7 million YouTube videos a day, 34 million TikTok videos a day, right? And with this incredible abundance, actually, generative AI actually, supercharges it even more. You've seen 15 billion images come out within a matter of a year. It took about 150 years to actually get this kind of content with photos. And the amount of music that's going to get pumped out every year is going to only increase. And why is this a massive problem, right? Because you have this limited highway. Imagine the situation. There's a limited highway, limited road. And you're just drawing more and more cars into that road. But there's no way to create a train, create a plane, create a better transportation system. You get a massive congestion, right? In the same way, what's happening is you have a limited iPhone screen, limited smartphone screen, limited computer screen, and everyone is drawing more and more content. But there's no way to actually form an IP network. There's no way to build on top of someone else's work and then share the economic upside. So what actually all these content creators force into is just competing with other content creators, right? When you are, and so what that means is you're just throwing more marketing dollars. You're actually just trying to game algorithm to get discovered, right? And you actually face this massive IP congestion. But at the same time, what's happening is people really want to build on someone else's content, right? Still fan fiction websites are 3 top fan fiction websites, top 300 website. It gets actually 3 billion plus annual visits a year. And not only that, now this fan fiction is getting supercharged into a fan film, right? You've seen Harry Potter Balenciaga, you've seen Drake T-Face song. And, what's happening here is that, people love to build and remix this incredible IPs built by others and actually build on top of it. But in this situation, J.K. Rowling is not winning, Drake is not winning, the fan creators is not winning, and everyone is just suing. Everyone, when things actually get blown up, sues these content creators, right? But what I'm trying to say is there's a huge pent-up demand to co-create and build on someone else's content. So what at the moment is happening is everyone is pumping out content in this siloed manner, right? IP production and distribution is a single-player mode. It's not a multiplayer mode. And when this is happening, this is pushing everyone into this into the state of massive IP congestion. Everyone is just throwing marketing dollars, a game algorithm to get ahead, right? We need to actually turn IP into multiplayer mode. And secondly, what I would like to argue is that generative AI actually requires a new IP infrastructure. And when this current IP infrastructure is so bad at doing even one-on-one licensing in the internet, right? You have to go through all these agents, lawyers, go through terms of service to actually remix on top of someone's content commercially. It cannot actually, the centralized copyright layer cannot actually do 1 to billion remixing, because with generative AI, you're actually basically training on the entire internet's data. And how are you going to compensate and license that data when you have to do 1 billion parallel legal negotiations to make that happen, right? So this is happening because you're training on someone else's content. You've probably trained on millions of YouTube videos, millions of other people's video. And if you ask OpenAI CTO, have you used YouTube's video? She cannot answer. She's like, she doesn't confirm or deny, which means she probably used a bunch of YouTube videos to train her content, right? And what's incredibly, worrying about the situation is when you look at 15 years ago, 20 years ago, when Google basically started disrupting ad market, you saw the entire local journalism basically get demolished, right? And I think this is going to be times 1,000 type event. It's 1,000 times bigger scale. Because what you see is actually Google was nice enough to bring traffic to your website, and what's happening with generative AI, you get the content right in front of your ChatGPT screen. So no one's driving traffic to your website, and what's happening, I think, is a huge tragedy of commons. So you can think of OpenAI and ChatGPT LLMs as these cows who are basically eating this grass, but no one is actually watering the grass. The grass is basically the creative output, intellectual output of everyone, but no one is actually watering and giving the necessary materials to actually keep the grass growing, right? And we'll see basically a barren internet land if no one figures out the IP layer to give and help monetize content in the internet with this massive kind of generative AI disruption. So we definitely need a new intellectual property infrastructure that is built for the speed, scale, and network nature of the internet. And what we are building here is what we call the programmable intellectual property layer. We're turning IPs into IP Legos. And if you think about what NFT has done, it's the ownership and scarcity layer for the internet's data, internet creative outputs, and IPs. But it's not composable, right? Even if you want to license someone else's NFT, you have to go through you have to find a new an NFT specialized lawyer and then do 6 months of negotiation with an NFT owner or NFT lawyer, NFT kind of business development department of that studio. But what we've done is now all the necessary remixing, licensing, royalty sharing information is embedded into the IP. So now IP turns into an IP Lego, right? I'll kind of dig down into what that means a little bit more, but what Vitalik says is basically the really central philosophy of blockchain technology is about taking out intermediaries, taking out all the necessary middlemen that has existed in interactions, right? And what programmable money has done, it turned money into money Legos. So without any middleman, you can start building all these DeFi applications on top of money, because now money has a built-in API. In the same way, with programmable IP, we now have an IP that has a built-in API for remixing, licensing, royalty sharing, right? And NFTs, right? You talk about NFTs, but NFTs are just still trapped. You can't do anything more than buying and selling. You can't start building frictionlessly on top of someone else's NFT and create derivatives and actually share the commercial upside. But now with our programmable IP, you can turn IPs into networks. You can start building, because now IPs have a built-in licensing, royalty sharing, copyright terms embedded into the IP. You can frictionlessly build derivatives without middleman, and when you commercialize it, it actually pays back the necessary royalty back to the NFT holder. And we are also building with this programmable IP and IP Lego, we think we can actually build a necessary IP layer for the age of generative AI. And we now finally have the necessary IP layer that is needed for the age of social media and generative AI. And I just want to give you kind of a more technical detail of the product. It's basically, we say we have two elements into this protocol. One is what we call the nouns, which is the necessary state of the protocol. The other is the verbs, which is basically all the functionalities needed to interact with the IP and permissionlessly. Now, with the noun, what we have is basically with NFT, you just had a pointer to the media file, but now we have all the necessary licensing, royalty sharing, all the copyright metadata baked into the IP, so that any machines can read and write on top of this IP frictionlessly. And modules like licensing modules, royalty sharing modules, allows you to interact with the IPs very frictionlessly. So what we are basically building is almost like a QR code for the IP, right? And what we also believe in is that we're supercharging the copyright law. So when you want to license an IP, you have to go through hundreds of pages of licensing agreement to license someone else's IP. But now we abstract this away. We put this into a limited set of parameters and embed it into the IP. And we also have a pointer to an off-chain contract that is legally enforceable. So now, any machines, including AI models, can read and write on top of these IP very, very easily. And I just want to give you some few examples of the applications that we're kind of supercharging with our protocol. The first is what we call co-creation with IP Legos and generative AI. And one of the apps is Sakai, which is almost like an IP Lego meets generative AI meets interactive anime creation. This application basically allows, I don't have time to play this kind of video, but this application allows you to create an anime by just clicking different worlds, different characters, different settings that other actually people built. So you can click a Marvel universe, you can click Bored Apes universe, and you can actually click other characters that other people own and create an anime very frictionlessly, like a Roblox of anime creation. And actually, when you monetize this, everyone who contributed all these IP Legos can get paid back. And actually, this application won the entire Ethereum Denver hackathon out of 250 teams, right? And we have a more and more kind of IP Lego co-creation types app. A company called Ablo, which actually has Balenciaga, Dolce & Gabbana, Balmain, and all these other brands as IP Legos pieces to allow you to create fashion remixes, right? And there are more and more apps coming in, so that now with all these IP Legos, you can create incredible derivatives and commercialize them. And third biggest, second biggest kind of application area that we're focusing on is building the IP layer for the age of generative AI. So we think, all these elements that goes into the creative process of generative AI actually can become IP Legos, right? Inputs, models, and outputs, right? The reason why you have the incredible foundational model is because you have this crazy amount of training data sets going into this foundational model. And then you have this specialized copyright fine-tuning data sets that are actually being used to fine-tune the model, right? And what we're doing, the first kind of focus that we're doing is almost building a GitHub for AI models and fine-tuning data sets. And all these fine-tuning data sets will have a built-in licensing and royalty sharing terms. So you can imagine having a Grimes data sets, right, with built-in licensing royalty sharing term, like, okay, give me 30% revenue back when you actually make a Grimes-style songs. And then, if it can monetize through SoundCloud, Spotify, everyone, the model creator gets payback, and actually the data set owner, like Grimes, gets payback, right? So we're actually we're going to announce, very soon a partnership with a very leading open source foundational model company that powers this kind of GitHub for AI models and fine-tuning data sets. Secondly, also, we think AI models are also IP Legos and programmable IPs. So we have actually a very seasoned Korean entrepreneurs who've had a $300 million exit, actually building AI model remixing platform with the on-chain licensing and on-chain IP licensing and registration. So now you can see an entire IP graph of models and data sets that actually resulted in the latest model that's creating image outputs. So what we are trying to do here is that we have this one axis of basically AI models that is very closed, which is OpenAI to Adobe, that is actually taking all the value, but not actually giving any money back, compensating any of the data owners and IP creators. And they're doing just backroom deals with very massive IP holders like Warner Music, Shutterstock. And on the left, we also see Facebook's Meta's Llama Stable Diffusion. They're open source, but they're not making any money. So what we want to create is a new market where the data set owners and also open source models can make money, right? By having this transparent IP graph with on-chain licensing and on-chain IP registration. So I just want to kind of end with our vision. Our defensive vision is that we want to create an IP layer for the age of generative AI. We think the current generative AI models don't really pay back the creators. And with this kind of current trend, actually will face a massive tragedy of commons, where all these IP creators and data owners are going to get massacred if they're not making money. With this vision, with our IP Legos, we want to have, we actually are realistic about what AI model owners can do. They cannot they cannot start like a billion parallel negotiations to compensate the creators. So we need a frictionless IP licensing regime with the primitive that we built with programmable IP. But I think the more exciting vision that we want to create is kind of building this massive IP Legoland. Imagine every single person's voice, every single person, every character in the world, every games in the world, every fashion brands in the world. Now a lot of those IPs are actually being put on chain, and these are turned into IP Legos where you can frictionlessly fork these IP and remix IPs. In the same way, before GitHub and Git showed up, everyone was actually building their software in silos, but only when Git and GitHub showed up, actually software development became a massive kind of collaborative, creative process globally, right? In the same way now, if you have this incredible inspirational toolkits of IP Legos, and if you have godlike tools of generative AI, we think every human can become can actually make a magical output. They can build the best Jedi film, the best kind of Drake remix song. They can be the best creator in the world. So that's us. Thank you so much.